Good to see you today. It is October 27th. We are going to be in the Gospel of Matthew. Once again, yesterday we looked at Matthew chapter 23, the woes pronounced on the scribes and the Pharisees, and spoke specifically about the verse 23, where he talks about that they would tithe right down to the spices in the cabinets, and spoke about that. But we touched on yesterday that ends with the lamentation over Jerusalem. And we read that yesterday. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you are not willing. See, your house has left you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more. Till you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Okay, come on to chapter 24 now. In chapter 24, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, do you not see all these things? Assuredly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. And it's an interesting passage, because here they are. The Lord is about to, and he's already touched on it. Your house has left you desolate. Destruction is coming. Your house has left you desolate. I wanted to save you. You're not willing. This is it. And now chapter 24 is going to be the destruction of Jerusalem. And to just look at it, here they are. Jesus is saying these things in chapter 23 in the temple. Right, verse 24, then Jesus went out and departed from the temple. He's saying these things in the temple, and he comes out, and they say, oh, look at the stonework, look at the buildings. Okay, couple of different thoughts. One is, they're missing the point. They're missing the point. And what I mean by that, do you remember in chapter 23, when the Lord is pronouncing the woes, and he speaks at one point about, he says in verse 16, whoever swears by the temple, it is nothing, but right, and he's condemning them, woe to you blind guides, who say whoever swears by the temple, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple, he's obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold? Whoever swears by the altar, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gift that is on it, he is obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? Okay, so when you get to chapter 24, after him saying, which is greater, the temple and they say, oh, look at the temple and how wonderful the stones are. Perhaps they're missing the point. Because the Lord is not emphasizing the temple. In chapter 23, he's emphasizing their hypocrisy. And perhaps they're missing the point, but they've just heard Jesus talking about which is greater, the temple or the gold. And it's the temple. And here they say, look at how wonderful the temple is. Look at how beautiful it is. And they're missing the point. And it's easy to miss the point. It's easy to miss the point. We have to be very careful. We have to be very disciplined to make sure that we ourselves don't miss the point when the Lord is speaking through the Word. We need to make very sure that we don't miss the point. Second thing I wanted to mention, I want you to consider that seeing and hearing are tied together. And what I mean by that is, he has just gotten done saying, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem." He has just gotten done condemning the Pharisees and talking about how that they have been murderers and they're going to continue to murder. And the disciples pick this time to say, showing him these things. And then he says, do you not see all these things? And it's like, did you not hear what Jesus just said? Did you not hear what he just said? As they're sitting here looking at the temple, he just said, your house is left to you desolate. Did you not hear that? No, you're blinded by how magnificent the outward appearance is. Not only are you blinded by how magnificent the outward appearance is, you have been deafened. Did you not hear what he just said? No, it's just you're overcome by the magnificence of the structures. And he says, not one stone's going to be left on another. Seeing and hearing are tied together. And that sometimes the outward appearance causes us to not hear the words. And we think, well, it looks okay. No, you gotta listen. You gotta hear what the Lord is saying. You gotta hear what others are saying as well. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. The Pharisees looked very religious, but inside, you got to go beyond the outside. You got to look inside, and that's the thing. Here they are. They're looking at the temple, and that's the third thing I wanted to mention. They're looking at the temple as they depart. When Jesus went out and departed from the temple. Well, this is just this is the facade. This is the outer structure. Outer structures. This isn't the inner courts. This is outside. It's like, okay, you start they're so amazed by the outside. And then he's going to go sit on the Mount of Olives, and they're looking out over Jerusalem. It's like, this is just the outside. You start going further and further in. You start peeling back the layers, and what are you going to find? You'll find the holy place. And then you keep going inside, and you'll find the holy of holy places. And you'll find a curtain. You'll find the veil. And what are you going to find behind the veil? Are you going to find the Ark of the Covenant? Are you going to find the mercy seat? Are you going to find the propitiation? Are you going to find Aaron's rod that was budding? Are you going to find the container that had the manna in it? Are you going to find the 10 Commandments? You're not going to find those things. They're not there. They haven't been there for a long time. How they were keeping the Day of Atonement and those things where the high priest would go behind the veil, right, with the blood of bulls and goats. How are they doing those things without the Ark of the Covenant? Scholars speculate about it, but it's not there. But here the disciples are, and they're like, oh, how beautiful it is from the outside. Yeah, go back and read in the Old Testament when the glory of the Lord departed from the temple. Okay, outwardly it may have looked, oh, everything looks great. Inwardly, your house has left you desolate. And guess what? It's slated for destruction. It's slated for destruction. I appreciate the account because it looks like Jesus went out, departed from the temple. His disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. So it looks like that's happening right as they're departing. But then in verse 3, now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, so it looks like a little bit of time has passed. He goes over to the Mount of Olives. He takes that journey, and the disciples come to him. And I think it's interesting because you have to ask the question, how do we get from being in awe of the stonework to then in verse 3, after the Lord has said, not one stone will be left on another, and they quickly get to verse 3, when will these things be? When will these things be? Right? Because you've just gone from admiring the stonework to believing what Jesus said, it's going to be destroyed. And they get to, when will these things be? And I think Jesus said what he said in verse 2, and they they thought about it and processed it, and then came to him as he sat on the Mount of Olives and said, tell us more. Tell us more. And we come to the Lord, and we better have ears to hear. And we better not look on the outward. the outward perishes. The inner man better be renewed day by day. So that means we better have ears to hear. Appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you join us for our next brief look into God's Word.